Hi, this is part two of my video series called uh, 50 Books Published to Kindle. My 50 books I published to Kindle. So this would be part two. Okay. Anyway, this is the Italian version of my science fiction novella called The Wrath of Ramadar. And that looks like a giant Muslim with a truck in his mouth. Yeah, it pretty much is. Yeah. Although he's not really a Muslim, he just it's actually an energy being on a planet that forces the inhabitants to face a life absorber twice a day, and it feeds off their life forces. And if they don't, then it threatens to destroy a city. And this Star Trek-like crew goes to the planet to check up on a friend. They don't know about this, and the friend tells them about it. And then the captain of the ship has powers of his own, and he tries to fight the thing. And really, what comes down to it, it's a science fiction parable on how to end the war on terror. And it's the second book I published to Amazon's Kindle. Another book I wrote is called The Gospel According to DVD Burner. That's me when I was younger. And the reason why it's me when I was younger is because what I did is I read the New Testament on video. And so that's actually a picture from the video. But the reason why I call it The Gospel According to DVD Burner is because I eventually turned the VHS into DVD discs, and I discovered that there were files that the that the DVD burner had created. And not all the gospel is there, just bits and pieces of it. And the bits and pieces that were able to download, I looked them up and picked them out, and so it's the gospel according to DVD burner, because no human picked them. It was a DVD player, and since I believe that God works in the random, I thought, well, maybe God wants this thing out there. So the gospel according to DVD burner. Nobody created it except for the DVD burner. This is called Call Me Jibril. It's a kind of a sequel to The Wrath of Ramadar. Here, this being, this black mutant, who you find out created Islam. He goes back in time to give pointers to Muhammad on how to make Islam successful. When he realizes, when he's reading, he finds out that in the 21st century there's no Islam, because Muhammad's 7th century way of thinking crept into the Quran. And so he goes back to give Muhammad pointers. And so successful is this being, this black mutant, this Doug Davis mutant, whatever you call him, that it creates Borg robots and flying Kaabas, and like the Borg cube and all that. And basically, it creates the Borg in our galaxy. And so the captain of Mutania, who was the star of The Wrath of Ramadar, goes back to try to stop him, and in the process changes time in a big way. Now, this is the very first novel this is actually the very first book that I ever published on. I've written a lot of novels, but this is the very first novel I wrote on that I actually published. It's called Trucker Jihad. Of course, this is the German version, and it's about a science teacher, a high school science teacher, who ends up finding a flash drive on his computer, and discovers it belonged to a substitute teacher that was supposedly killed a couple of nights, about a night before. And in the process, he finds out all this stuff about how to expose Islam. And he ends up exposing Islam to the point where he becomes a marked man. And so he tries to hide by becoming a trucker. And of course, he ends up being hunted as a trucker. It's a suspense novel. And at the same time, exposes a lot of Islam. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah. That was the okay. This is the Wrath of Ramadar, and I use that as my the Wrath of Ramadar. I use this avatar as my thumb. Or I guess you could. I use this picture as my this book cover as my Nalan Yesmar avatar. If that looks like a giant Muslim in a city with the smoke, atomic smoke coming out of his mouth like Godzilla, and lightning and radiation or energy coming out of him, it is. And I think I told you about this thing at the beginning when it was in the German version. This is the third book I wrote on Amazon that I published at Amazon. It's called "Hold a Mirror Up to Islam." And basically, it's my first nonfiction book I published to Amazon's Kindle, where I'm questioning Muslims about Islam, and where I interject my thoughts with theirs, so they end up reading what I'm asking them. Jihad of the Words is pretty much the same thing. I published this June 22nd, 2012. Just a few days after this, the second one I published. Of Mice and Sarah Palin. That's an early version of Propeller Wars, where I am Mutania. That's my handle on there, where I try to defend America and Israel against Muslims, stealth Muslims, and liberals who are very pro-blamer. It's a nonfiction work. Full phasers on the Borg cube. Full phasers on the Borg cube. As you can tell, that Borg cube is actually the Kaaba. The Muslims are running around. That's like a sequel to Jihad of the Words. It's a sequel, basically. Nonfiction. Atheists into the Twilight Zone is all the times I've talked with atheists, and that's me with glasses on, acting like an old atheist, being confronted with a mirror, kind of like holding up a mirror to atheism. Basically the same thing I do with the Muslims. It's done there. Paint in the Night with Stars. That's another dealing with Mutania, and on Netscape's Propeller. That's me by in the morning. It's supposed to be a comet shooting by in the night. Okay, Sniper on the Kaaba. Messages from the Edge of Earth. This is actually a play, a full-length play, 3-act play. And yeah, that's me on a TV screen where I'm playing a guy that becomes a video ghost. It's basically a it's like Fiddler on the Roof, except dealing with a Jewish family. It's dealing with a Muslim family, well, Muslims too, and with the Jewish family where they were experiencing change that was turning their world upside down in Anatevka. This video ghost sets up sleeper cells that start exposing, making it so Islam can be exposed on the internet. And I'm not going to give away the ending, but it ends pretty dramatically. That's all I can say. Here's the German version of that same play, and this is the Italian version of that same play, and the French version of that same play, and the Spanish version of that same play. Oh, and here's the French version of Trucker Jihad. and the Italian version of Trucker Jihad. And I think I will stop it here because I think I'm running out of room.